evening, everyone. I'm Paige Pitgood, an Associate Content Manager with BrightTalk here in London. As someone who was the only female in my high school tech class, it really excites me to see so many women in the audience this evening who are carving out their own paths in tech. I'm really excited to be here with Emily Rigby, our keynote speaker this evening from OVO Energy. I'm going to let Emily introduce herself and share her story. You can come on stage. And then afterwards, we're going to talk a little bit more with Emily about her journey and then open the discussion up to the audience for your questions. Thanks for being here, Emily.
Thank you very much. Could I get the clicker? Thank you. Oh look, that's me. So I'm really excited to be here today. Thank you so much for having me, and thank you, Paige, for introducing me. I will now introduce myself, so let's see how it goes. I'm Emily Rigby. I currently work at OVO Energy. I'm a software engineering manager there. I run 3 different teams that look after internal tools that we build for our other software engineering teams at the company. So we look after authentication, customer communication, and also data used for analysis around the business. So I've been in technology my whole working life, not that long, and also through kind of education as well. So though my story might not be that unusual, I think everyone has a unique perspective to share about how they got into tech and what inspires and interests them about what they do. So hopefully my mixture of personal stories and technical anecdotes will be interesting for you for the next 20 minutes, because there's no choice. So I'm just gonna, rattle through some little story around how I got to where I am today, and really looking forward to some questions from you guys at the end. So here it is, my journey into tech in some pictures. I'll stand aside so you can see it. My parents were software engineers, as you can tell by the picture of me with a cable at 2 weeks old, that is, yeah. So for me, like, maths and science was very much just a part of my upbringing. It wasn't weird for me or strange to be a girl that was interested in maths and science, because my entire family was, and it was just part of my everyday existence. I also went to an all-girls school, so for me, it was just all women there were interested. Maths, our maths class was huge. It was actually languages it was weird to be interested in. And so for me, it was very natural and confidence building to go through education and learn about software engineering, about maths and science, and be part of that world. So a little kind of sneak peek into something that I did while I was at school. I did an A-level in computing. That was kind of my first exposure to programming. I'd never done it before, even though my parents did it. I just knew that I really liked maths, and I wanted a practical application of maths. So I did computer science as an A-level to kind of see whether or not I wanted to take that path further, and if I wanted to kind of pursue that as a career. And I really loved it. First year A-level was absolutely amazing. I built all of these things that I would show my friends to play hangman, and I just loved how quickly I could build something that I could show to someone else, and though they weren't that interested or impressed, it didn't kind of deter me. I just wanted to keep going and keep building things and sharing it with other people. In my second year, I had to do a project. And I had this guy come in who was going to be my project manager, and he said, what I want you to do is I want you to build an n-space Wikipedia property mapping graph in Python. I was like, I don't know what any of those words mean except for Wikipedia. I know what that is. And that was really like an eye-opening experience for me, because I went from not understanding a single word that he said to building this thing over the course of about 2 months. As an 18-year-old, that was like a really confidence-forming experience to say, actually, I can go from not understanding anything at all to building something that works, and also can show you something about the world that we live in. Like what it basically was taking pages from Wikipedia, which he provided for me, and then stripping some data about them, like how many edits there were, or like some readability criteria, or how many different people had edited them, and kind of mapping them, like showing graphs of how they related to each other, to see, if there were more edits, did it mean it was more readable, etc., etc. So it was kind of like, it was computer science, it was using computers to scientifically prove something. So that really, it really opened my eyes to what was possible with computing. At that point, I then went to university, and I went from all-girls education to, whoa, there are are no women here. It was 1 in 10 at university, and that was the class was 120 people, so it was a lot. And I remember the first lecture I went into. It was like the kind of introductory lecture, and it was a combination of computer science and electronic and engineering. And I went into the lecture hall, it was filled with 500 plus people. That was a lot of men. I didn't really see anybody there who like I identified with, or that like seemed like me in what I wanted to do. But that was just an initial reaction really, and I still loved doing what I was doing. I was still enjoying writing code, and really for me university was just an ability to kind of go through the experience of doing the same thing again and again and getting better at it each time. So, you know, every time you saw a bug, you a bit quicker to like solve that bug next time, and every time you had to make a decision about how to architect this thing to make it work, you're a bit better at it next time, and that kind of enforced my ability to say, actually, you know, I can produce things that are worthwhile, and also that I'm kind of building a bit of experience and understanding and confidence in my own abilities as a software engineer. My dissertation at university was on this, and I really liked it, so I'm going to share it with you now. So I don't know if any of you have heard of Galaxy Zoo? I see a nodding head at the back. But basically it was a project that was done by this university who had taken pictures from the Hubble telescope that looked like this, and they built a website that allowed members of the public to go on and train about what galaxy they were looking at. So they had to say whether or not it was spiral, or whether it was more circular, or whether it was formed in an elliptical shape. And they would go through the pictures and just click buttons. This is spiral, this is elliptical, this is oval-shaped. And it meant that there was an unheard of amount of data. Thousands and thousands of people spent hours and hours classifying this data. So we ended up with, you know, all of the galaxies, all of the pictures, all of the classifications, which is a perfect thing for machine learning. So I took that data set and I've applied a machine learning algorithm onto the pictures to say, given this picture, do I think does the computer think this is spiral, elliptical, or oval? So I was actually replicating a study that had already been done by an Oxford professor. And it went really well, and I was able to build a machine learning algorithm that was better than a human at classifying these pictures. Well-ish, close enough. And at the end of my project, I actually sent my paper to this Oxford professor who'd originally written the paper I was following, and she replied to me and was like, this is amazing, I can't believe you've done this, like you need to come to Oxford and talk about it, and maybe you should come and do a PhD. And I was like, wow, really don't want to do that, but that's amazing. So that was another really great experience of it was just a whim. Like my mum said to me, you should send it to the professor, she probably has an email address. And so I did, and I got that feedback, and it was amazing to kind of see it go out into the world and not be just laughed out of the shop. So another big part of my university experience was I went on 2 different internships. First to Ericsson, which is basically part of like Sony Ericsson, the phone company, but this was their television branch. It was based in Southampton. And it was the first time they'd ever taken interns, so they had no idea what they were doing. They had no idea what I was capable of or what I wasn't capable of. And I was sat down by my manager when I arrived, and he was like, I want you to build a packet mapping program in Python. It needs to be multi-threaded, and it's looking for these errors. And I was like, I understood Python out of that, which is better, because I didn't understand Python last time somebody did that to me. But again, you know, I took that away, and I just one step at a time worked my way through it, and got to the point where I was building this tool that was really useful, and it actually made some changes in Ericsson. So again, that was an incredible experience. And really what I wanted from these internships was a kind of an assurance that I was heading in the right direction. Like I didn't want to kind of end up as a computer scientist in the workplace and just go, oh, I really don't like this. Like, why have I spent the last 3 years aiming to this job that I don't like? But that wasn't what the internship taught me. I really enjoyed my experience, so it was worthwhile. And then the second year, I wanted to go for a more kind of formulated internship plan, where they had actually had interns before and knew what the heck they were doing. So I went to Bloomberg, and they have an enormous internship program, huge company, lots of organisation, so many social events and training programs and all of that. So it definitely was exactly what I was looking for. And again, I was part of a team and built incredible products for. Actually built a library function so that they could like check in and out their technical books that they stored. That was something I really wanted to do. It was amazing. And I remember every day of the internship, I was like, if it's still this good at the end, I'm going to come back for a full-time job. If it's still this good at the end, I'm going to come back for a full-time job. And it was still that good at the end, so I went back and I got a full-time job then. And that was my first role out of university, was joining this team. It's called TRM, Treasury Risk Management, which was an incredible first place to work, because it was a brand new product for Bloomberg. They'd never done anything in this sector before. There was no code. It was completely from scratch. And we built this thing from the ground up, a team of 6 of us, in like brand new technologies and doing all the latest stuff, and it was amazing. When I first joined the team, I was given a mentor, and this mentor was very controlling, and he didn't trust me, and he really wanted me to do things his way, and he would just randomly get me to repeat my actions over and over again, and I found that really, really hard as a starting point in my career. But after a while, he actually went on a business trip for 3 months, and couldn't control me quite as much. And that was a big turning moment for me, because I realized actually I can do this on my own, and I didn't need this man telling me, oh no, do that again, do that again, do that again. And so that was like a huge moment where I started taking on loads more responsibility in the team. I started doing a lot more projects on my own, and my manager started to notice what I was able to do, because I didn't have this guy over me anymore. So it's kind of lucky he went away, really. And so that kind of meant that I moved into this role of Scrum Master. So the team transitioned into Agile while I was in it. And my manager wanted me to take on the Scrum Master opportunities, basically as part of what I was doing in the team. Does anybody know what Scrum Master is? I use Agile, some nods, some shakes of head. Basically it's a process. So instead of coming up with loads of requirements at the beginning and then building it all and then delivering it all at the end, you build and deliver iteratively. So you start with like little pieces of work and you deliver and deliver and deliver and deliver and deliver. And the person who makes sure you keep delivering and that the team continues to work well together is the Scrum Master. So it's kind of like part management, part technical, part project management, part working with business. And for me, it was completely life-changing. I loved it so much. It was my first experience at really doing project management and working with business and communicating status like outside of my team. Because it was one of the first teams in Bloomberg that had moved to Agile, I was wheeled out at every opportunity to give talks about how we were doing and what went well and what went badly and what we'd learned. And it was a huge moment for me, because I became quite like well known in Bloomberg. Oh, the Agile girl, yeah, I know her. She's quite chatty. So it was really good, and it also it gave me an opportunity to kind of take on management opportunities in the team. So I was kind of leading in that aspect of I was helping people decide what to do, and I was making sure that we were delivering on time, and I was making sure that business understood what was going well and what was going badly, and starting to think about the roadmap of the project and kind of what's more involved in taking on management roles in a technology company. So that was the next step for me, really, is that I moved into management. So my old team, you can't really see this, my old team lead, that's him on the left here. He moved to another team, and he came up to me and he was like, Emily, I want you to lead this team, and I was, crap. Because there were 5 team members, 4 men, 1 woman, all of them older than me, all of them with more technical experience except for 1. And I just kind of, like, that was what was crashing through my mind when he said it to me. It was like, how in the world am I meant to take on this challenge of bringing these people and making them do things when I don't feel like I have any power in this situation? But that was just like the initial, luckily I didn't say no, and the initial kind of panic died down, and actually my team was amazing. I loved them so much, and they were really supportive, and they were like, yeah, Emily's the right choice for this, we're going to help her succeed, and we're going to make sure that she kind of, that we work with her rather than against her. So we did do amazing work, and we continued to build this TRM product up until the point we got shut down, which was not my fault. And I had to move teams. So I left that team, which was really sad, and I moved to this new department, which didn't exist. So it had a New York branch, but no London branch. And so they wanted to start a London team, but they needed a manager. So they took me from TRM, well, I offered, and they built the team around me. So I hired basically the team together. I set up our business strategy, I set up the technical strategy, I set up the work that we were going to do. I worked with the business guys in New York to make sure we were doing the right thing. I traveled to New York a lot to try and make sure that we were building the right relationship with BVAL over there. And we started kind of going as a team. And for me, that was, it was everything. I was doing I was the only person in the team. So I was the engineer, I was the manager, well, that didn't really mean anything. I was the technical director, I was the professional director, and it was just an incredible, like, wave of stuff. But also so diverse. You know, I think that's what really is amazing to me about engineering, is that engineering is not just sitting in a room and writing code and never coming out of that room ever. It's some of that, some writing code, but also it's communicating with people, it's designing things, it's planning, it's working with business, it's talking about your experiences with groups of people that are large. It's working, you know, with others and collaborating, and for me that was really important in my job, that I wasn't just sat on my own and doing my thing, I was actually building things and working with people, which is what I love so much about management. So I built this team in BVAL, we started working, but things became quite difficult quite quickly, basically it turned out that, you know, the New York team was quite an old team. They were quite happy with the way they were doing things. It was not the way that I wanted to do things. They were using legacy systems, they were using a legacy process, they were becoming more and more difficult to deal with and work with, and I found myself just going round and round and round in loops of repeating myself to them about how crazy they were being and how I didn't think that what they were doing was the best way to do it, and maybe we should try this other way, but they just weren't listening to me and didn't want to hear what I had to say, so I made the really difficult decision to leave Bloomberg. Leaving your first job is really hard because you feel so loyal to that company, you know, like I was there for 4.5 years, 4.5 days, precisely. And it was like my life, you know, I was like, I'm never going to leave Bloomberg, I love it here so much, they take such good care of me and they do all this training and it's brilliant and I love it and I'm never going to leave. And even as it was starting to go bad in BVAL and I wasn't happy and I wasn't enjoying myself, even then I was like, I can't leave Bloomberg, I need to stay, I love Bloomberg, I can't leave Bloomberg. And it just kind of went on these months of not really enjoying my job, and it got to the point where I was like, there's no point in me staying here, I don't like it, and I don't think it's worth saving that relationship. And so I broke up with Bloomberg. And I moved companies. So now I work at OVO, which I haven't broken up with. We're still in a happy relationship. The recruiter who recruited me for it is here this evening. She's waving. She requested a shout out. Thank you, Lena, for bringing me. So my job at OVO is very different. I'm still a manager, still manage teams, but I now manage 3 different teams that are doing 3 different things all the time. It's very unfortunate. So I can't really get as involved as I was at Bloomberg, where I had one team who was doing one thing and I could keep up. But now I've got 3 teams that all do this amazing stuff, and I want to help them, and part of my role is dealing with their kind of technical issues and making sure they're moving in the right direction. But it's not always that easy. And they're very intelligent and they've got a lot of experience, and now I have 11 people, all men. Most of them have more experience than me. And being able to stand up in front of that group and say, I know better, and I think you're doing this wrong and you should do it this other way, and I've come up with this idea for this thing and you should do it, and I think it'll be great, and it's not really an option, so you have to do it now, is quite something. And I think it's one of those things, the more often you do it, the more you feel like it's your right. I now see that one of my team members is here. Hi, Chris. Hopefully you feel like well represented in that. But it is an incredible job, and being able to be involved in 3 different teams doing 3 amazing things and have a say in what they're doing is quite the experience, and it's definitely a step up from what I was doing at Bloomberg, so I love it very much. So I thought to kind of wrap up, I would kind of share some challenges that I faced on the journey and what I've learned from them. And there have been some interesting moments, I have to say. So the first thing is, right when I started in computer science at university, right from this day one, I would just get, oh, you don't look like a computer scientist. Oh, you don't act like, you don't dress like that. You don't seem the same as computer scientists would seem. And at the beginning, I was like, no, I don't. I am amazing and fabulous. And I don't need to look like a nerd, because nerds are ugly. But actually, what I've realised kind of later down the line is actually how damaging and alienating that is, and that actually what people were telling me was that I didn't belong. And I do belong. And I do have a place here in technology, and it got to the point where when people would say that to me, I'd be like, well, I am. I did actually have one woman ask me if I was an actress, because I was in some marketing video for Bloomberg, and she was like, oh, I saw you in the video, like, you were really good, are you an actress? No. I'm a a software engineer, like it says under my name, software engineer, never mind. So that's the first thing that I really don't like, and it's definitely a big learning experience for me, is like stopping people from saying that, being like, actually, computer scientists look like a lot of different things. The second one is, in my team back at Bloomberg, I had this guy on the team who was an older man, and he would often say things like, you know, if we needed to work with another team, he'd be like, oh, you should go and ask them because no one can say no to your smile. Or he would say, you know, when, like, if I'd ask him to shut the curtains because the wind light was blinding me, and he'd be like, oh, but you look like an angel in that light. I was like, this is just weird. At the beginning, I just didn't really think anything of it. But later on, down the path again, I kind of came to my senses and was like, actually, it's not okay for that to be going on. And though I might be able to laugh it off, he probably might not be doing that same thing to other people. So I had to have a chat with him and basically take him to a room and say, it makes me feel uncomfortable when you say these things to me, and I'd rather you just didn't. So that was challenging, but definitely like a lesson learned for me is that actually he took it really well, and we kind of moved forwards from that. And though it was possibly the hardest conversation I ever had to have with one of my direct reports, it was really worthwhile, and it made a difference. So I would recommend doing it if you if you have this situation. Just talk to them about it, because it's much better than not doing anything at all. So another challenge, I guess, for me was when I first took on the team and first moved into that management role. The team was my friends, right? I was their peer, so we went out together and we were on Facebook together and we went to dinner together and all of this. And when I moved into the leadership role, my manager said to me, oh, you need to take a step back. You need to be able to maintain distance so that you can deliver difficult messages and you can work with those people and make sure that they're, you know, doing the right thing. And I just didn't know what that meant. I was like, step back from what? What does that mean? I have to just like, it doesn't make any sense. And for me, like, I struggled with that a lot when I first moved into management, about like not being myself around the people that I knew. And that just didn't work for me. And I think that was my big lesson learned, was that though he had a point and I needed to be able to have those conversations, I needed to do it in a way that felt authentic for me and that worked in the relationships that I was having and worked with the people that I was talking to. So I definitely, like, I'm not saying that I continued to act exactly the same around them. I did manage to create my space, but I did it in a way that worked for me and made me feel natural and like it made sense, rather than I was just parroting off some lines. So that was really important for me, to not just try and be the manager that I could see in other people, but to be the manager that I wanted to be, and to be the kind of support there for my team. And the last kind of challenge that I want to share with you guys was when that team shut down, the TRM team shut down, basically they decided to stop funding the group, and they were going to move the entire team whole into another area. And I really didn't want to work in that other area. It was a complete car crash. And the whole team didn't really want to work in that area either, so I had to go to my manager and say, we don't really want to do that, can we just not? And he said to me, oh, well, this comes up from higher up from me. I'm like, well, I'm going to keep climbing the chain until you find someone who can do something about it. So I talked to his manager, and then I spoke to their manager, and I spoke to that person's manager. And at the time, I was so wrapped up in it, of like, I'm not going to let the team get into this, I'm not going to let them like work where they don't want to work, that I hadn't really thought about what I was doing, or like the kind of challenges I was taking on. But it worked in the end. The team got what they wanted. And looking back on it, that was a big moment for me, because it really was being who I wanted to be, you know, being the kind of manager that I wanted to be, and caring about the person, the people that work for me, and caring about what they did day to day, and then trying to make it happen, and working hard to make sure that the people around me understood what it was that I wanted, and that they weren't going to just shove me wherever it made sense for them. So that kind of brings me to my last lesson learned, which is, like, speak up and make your voice heard. I spent a lot of time, especially when I changed jobs, sitting in meetings going, should I say something about this? Like, I feel like I have a point of view, but I'm not really sure that anybody else would agree with me. Like, I don't know how they ended up in the place that they're in. But if you don't say anything, then who is? And you're a unique person who's had a unique experience, which has given you a unique perspective, and you're there to share your perspective. That's why we build teams, to bring unique perspectives together. And if you aren't sitting up and saying something and saying, actually, I think we should do it this way, or actually, I don't think that's going to work, or that's a brilliant idea, but why don't we also add this? Then missing out on your take on what that is, and they're missing out on your view. So I now make a point of being very annoying in all the meetings that I'm in. Oh, I don't really agree with that. I don't really think that's right. Oh, maybe we should go this way. And what's great about the company that I work for now, OVO Energy, is that they actually really do support me in doing that. And making sure that they are listening to my voice, and that when I say things, they can disagree, that's fine. It's just that they aren't ignoring me, and they aren't like turning my ideas aside for no reason. And that's really important for me in my job. So that's been really important, and I would highly recommend that you find a place where they do that for you as well. So that's it from me. Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Emily. It truly was inspiring, and thanks for sharing all of your story and the challenges and the successes throughout it. It was great. I've got a bunch of questions for you, but just a reminder, we're going to have questions from the audience after this as well, so make sure you have your questions ready. One of my colleagues will be coming around with a mic, and then you can ask your questions as well. So to get started, I heard a great stat from Girls Who Code that in middle school, 74% of girls express interest in STEM subjects, but when choosing a college major, only 0.4% of high school girls select computer science. I'm really curious to know, in your opinion, how do we get females to stay in tech?
It's a really good question, and I've definitely seen that stat kind of in action, because at my school, it was easy, that percentage of people doing STEM subjects, and I was the only one that went on to do computer science. And for me, that group of girls, though they were really intelligent, they just didn't know what tech was. It was really like a mystical place for them that they didn't understand, didn't want to understand. So I think for me it's really about demystifying the job, because software engineering doesn't mean anything on its own until people actually see what it means, like what does it actually look like day to day, and what is coding, and how easy it can be to get your foot in the door and actually start to work with it and understand it. So for me it's just about bringing more people in as early as possible, so that they can understand that actually it isn't that difficult or male-dominated or dangerous or whatever it is that they're worried about, that they can get on it as quickly and as soon as possible so that they can build confidence and choose it when it comes to that time.
Yeah, you saw it yourself, right, in your university classes.
Yeah.
I'd like to shift gears a little bit, because I'm curious to know, do you think the discussion around women in tech is going in the right direction, or do you think it's having an adverse effect and holding us all back?
I think the problem is, and I see this a lot, I go to a lot of women tech events, and I do talks like this as much as I can, and I think the problem is, it's a lot of women talking to a lot of other women about how there aren't many women in tech, and we know we're there doing it. So I think if I go to another women in tech event and they tell me there aren't that many women in tech, I'll just throw something onto the stage or something, because I've had enough, to be honest. It's not that the conversation is going in the wrong direction, it's just going to the wrong people.
The audience itself, right?
Yeah, well, and women talking to women isn't good enough. It should be women talking to the diverse mix of people that are out there in the world. And an interesting thing that happened at Bluebird, we sent out this survey, basically to all of engineering, and we asked them, how diverse do you think the workforce is? How well do you think it is? And 86% said it was extremely diverse, even though we were 1 in 10 women.
I'm shocked that they actually thought that.
Yeah, it was crazy, and I was just like, this is completely insane, but for them, that was really good, because the industry's like that, so I can see a woman, and she's over there, there's loads of women. And so I think it's about they had no reason to get involved in the conversation, they had no reason to be interested.
They didn't think it was a conversation,
They didn't think it was a problem,
right?
They didn't think it was a problem. So I think that's where it has to start, with that 86% of people who don't think it's a problem, and just kind of lifting the lid for them and saying, actually, look at all this crap that's going on back here.
Yeah, totally. And hopefully for our next event, we will have more men in the audience as well, right?
Shout out to the men who are here.
Woo!
Thanks for arriving.
I love hearing about both your academic and professional journey with Bloomberg and OVO. And I'm curious to know, have you had a mentor within this journey? And are you currently a mentor, or in your previous position were you a mentor?
Yes, and yes, and yes. So I think the word mentor is bandied about a lot, and it kind of brings on this mystical term of mentor, unicorn, and I think really a mentor is just someone who you can talk to and get advice from, and that can be your friend, it can be your mum, it can be your manager, it can be someone else that you work with, and I've used so many people throughout my career to help me when I didn't know what to do. Speaking to my old manager, who's been amazing, speaking to other managers that I know, getting advice from them, speaking to, I've before been given an official mentor, from a program, and they were amazing as well. And I think it really just is what you make from that experience and that opportunity. And I have connected with a few other women at OVO and spoken to them about their journey and like what they want to do and what's interesting to them. And I think more than anything, it's just being a friendly person to chat to. I'm quite happy to just meet up with them and talk about what they did at the weekend or how cute their cat is. Like, it doesn't need to be business all the time.
Of course.
So I think that's the key to good mentorship relationships is actually getting to know who it is you're talking to and building a relationship, a strong connection that means you can then get to the more difficult stuff that you need to talk about.
And do you have any advice for someone who's maybe looking for a mentor?
I think it's that, like, don't be looking for a unicorn, like find them everywhere that they are, you know, they're everywhere in every position. They're your peer, they're your manager, they're a manager of another team, and it's just about thinking about when you're facing a problem, who might know something about this, and just going to talk to them about it, because I love sharing my experiences of what's gone well and what's gone badly. Like, more than happy to talk to any of you about them at any point. And I think that's what it is, you know, like just go to someone and say, oh, I don't really know what to do with this situation, what would you do? And that's a mentorship relationship straight there.
Yeah. And then I have one last question for you. Are there any questions, some of which I may have asked tonight, that you think, I wish I wasn't always asked that, or stop putting the word female in it and asking the question?
I definitely get wheeled out a lot to like,
I can imagine.
Bluebird used to send me to things just all the time because they were like, oh, there's a woman.
The unicorn.
Send that one. Same at university, actually. I used to get sent to alumni events because they were like, we have a woman, look who she is. And I got paid, so I didn't mind. I think that is the problem. Like, if you continue to treat them as different, you'll continue to feel different, you know? Like, if someone continues to say, oh, well, you'd better come to this thing, or you'd better be involved in that, or, oh, let's put this specially on for you because you're the diverse candidate, that's when you start to feel like it doesn't feel right anymore, it doesn't feel natural, and I'd rather just be treated as anybody else, like another manager at OVO. It doesn't matter that I'm a woman. But I think really the main thing for me is this whole, you don't look like a computer science. That's the biggest like impact on my life has been people who tell me that I don't look right to fit in. Like,
and there is no right, right?
Exactly, there is no right. Anyone can do it. It's not rocket science. It's computer
science. Okay, I'd like to open up the discussion to the audience. Does anyone have any questions? Can we get a mic over there?
I'm loud.
Okay.
What do you want to do next? Like, have you got a goal in mind?
So the question was, what do I want to do next? And it's a great question. Keeps me up at night. So I think at the moment, you know, I'm managing teams, and I'm really loving what I'm doing. And kind of the next step for that would be to manage managers, and I'm not really ready to do that yet. So for me, it's just about getting more experience at managing different kinds of teams, and I don't necessarily mean like different kinds of like different languages or whatever. It's just each team has its own particular way of working, and they're all like weird in their own way. And I think it's just experiencing as many of those things as possible. Something else that I really love is events like this, being able to talk to people and being able to kind of share my experiences, and I really enjoy coming to them. So I try and do as many of them as possible. But I've also recently started a blog. Not because I want any of you to read it, but just because it's part of my, like, being able to write that stuff down and think about what it is that I've been doing and why have I been doing that, and that's kind of the direction I want to move more in, is talking about my experiences and sharing them with other people. So that's kind of my personal development goal, is to write things down more.
Perfect.
The other question we've got is your certificate.
Yep, sure.
You're obviously a very confident speaker, so the question is, how do you, like, what was your advice for getting people to find their technology voices and helping them have the confidence to speak with it?
It's interesting, because when I was at school, I was very shy, and I didn't have any friends, and I didn't talk to anyone ever. Like,
you wouldn't tell that.
Well, it's been a journey. And really, it was when I got to university, and I made an incredible group of friends that kind of pushed me to be bigger, and then also having successes in my career meant that I was feeling like I had been empowered to do things. But it comes from within, you know, like once you've decided that you want to be confident, kind of fake it till you make it style actions, then you can go out and do these things. And I had a music teacher who once told me that you aren't scared of brushing your teeth. So if you do performing as much as you brush your teeth, then you won't be scared of it. And I was like, that's terrible advice. But she did have a point. And the more often you get up in front of big groups, and the more often you realise that actually people are very supportive and they want to hear your story, and I've very rarely been heckled, so thanks guys. then it kind of gives you confidence to go back and do it again. And yes, it's scary the first time, and then the 42nd time it's not so bad.
Fair enough. Okay, well, thank you so much for being here this evening. Oh, perfect. No worries.
Hi everyone, thank you Emily. Your journey, the way you explained was really, really nice, and good to see a passion in a woman in technology. I basically am from technology. I have done my engineering in information technology. And since then, I was almost for 11 years, I would say, I was continuously just technology. I wasn't a coder. I started as a coder, but couldn't stand it because I really wanted to go out and meet people. Now, I have a question which is very personal to me, and I don't know if it's going to help anybody else here, but the question is, what would be your advice to somebody who wants to come back after a career break? And I do not want to leave technology, and I'm not planning to, and I tried as much as I can stay. I'm trying, so very recently I finished my open innovation exec course on London School of Economics, just so I do not say that I did nothing during my career break. Yes, I did, but of course it had to be planned and everything else. And have you ever had an experience of talking to someone or coming across somebody who had a career break?
Yes, definitely. And we had such a diverse mix of people at Bluebird. Like, we had one guy who was a salmon fisher for many years, and did a biology degree, and then just decided one day that he was going to be a computer scientist and did a course and then applied and was a computer scientist from that point onwards. Always a very special dude. And I think that's what's so amazing about technology, especially if you want a technology job, to be a software engineer. What we're looking for during the interview is ability to write code, and ability to write code is something you can teach yourself. And I think it's really possible to teach it yourself. And you can do all of these amazing online courses and ensure that your skills are up to scratch. And then I feel like applying for the right jobs, getting experience at interview, and then going in and being an engineer is so open to people right now and so appealing that I think everyone should be able to do it and get involved. Obviously, I personally haven't had a career break, so I can't give any personal experience of how that is, but I have worked with people who've gone away and come back, and I think, the interview is the door, right, that you need to open, and so it's just being able to crack that. There is a book, Crack the Coding Interview. You could read that, and then you can prove what you're doing actually on the ground and show how much experience and understanding you have in order to move back up the ladder. I don't know if that helps.
Is there any more questions? Okay, well, we're going to wrap that up then. Thanks so much for being here. We really, really enjoyed it.